Welcome back to So Bad It's Good, presented by Betches Media. This is an emergency episode, folks. I don't usually release on the weekends, but I was sick this week and I needed to talk about this, and I needed somebody that was just as passionate, maybe even more passionate about this season of Summer House than I am. And there's only one person I could turn to, and she happens to be one of the founders of Betches, who I proudly work for. But also I want to point out before we get into this, her book comes out July 9th. It's called Democracy in Retrograde. She writes this with Emily Amick, and I am so excited for this. I have started reading it. It is fantastic. It is for everybody. I truly do mean that. So go pre-order now. But we got to get into Summer House. So please welcome back Sami Sage.
Thank you so much again. You always give me just too flattering of an introduction. And wait, let me just say one more thing about the book. If you pre-order it by July 12th, although it's coming out July 9th, we're giving you a few extra days. And if you email your proof of purchase, aka a screenshot of your receipt, to democracyinretrograde@gmail.com, you will automatically be entered to win a $3,000 gift card to Expedia. And you will also receive a digital gift from me and Emily on July 12th. We'll tell you what it is. Brian, are you coming to the launch party, or are you not going to be in New York?
I don't think I can, because I'm working a red carpet for Netflix that night.
Oh, okay. Well,
Betches,
that's
actually.
more...
So
good. Okay.
But believe me, I truly
that you do that.
No, I would. Are you kidding me? I would love to come and celebrate you in the book. Are you kidding? Any chance to get to be around you guys would be amazing. So it's truly a bummer, but I can't wait to see people's responses to this book. And just to jump right in it, since democracy's in retrograde, do you consider Summer House a democracy after watching this season of Summer House?
Yeah, I do, actually. I think that everyone really gets everyone, in the Summer House itself, yes, not when it comes to how the reunion is framed, but at the same time, it doesn't necessarily matter, because I think everyone can see it. So at this point, I think it's become more of the fan reaction to the way production has chosen to frame things or not frame things. And I think viewers are savvy enough at this point that they can see and form their own opinion. And sometimes that opinion will validly come out on either side of any one of these people in their problematic marriages. But
I do. I mean, I would love to be privy to some of the conversations between production in terms of the Bravo fan base. Are we appreciated, or are we the ultimate fly in the ointment? Because even if it is not covered on the reunion, you know it damn well it's going to be covered on the Reddit, the Instagram, the Twitter, all of these things. And it's really fascinating, because if you judge part 2 of last night's reunion, I thought it was a huge, not a huge letdown, but in a sense, I felt it didn't cover a lot of things that I really wanted to be covered. And in retrospect, I thought Kyle got it so easy. Not that he needs to be punished, but I just thought there were some hard questions that he did not have to answer for. What were your thoughts?
Exactly the same. I wrote down, not as good as the first episode. I would say it was like a hard departure. And then Andy was so in the tank for both Carl and Kyle that it made it boring, similar to what we talked about last time I was here talking about Vanderpump Rules, when it's so clearly like a tipped scale towards one party. It's not interesting, because you don't get answers to the things that we want answers to. But at the same time, you ask the producers think that that's a good thing because it'll get covered. Yeah, they do benefit when we're talking about it. We're here talking about it because they didn't talk about it. So we're going to analyze that. Maybe it's like they want to give you something to analyze, or maybe it's just a combination of who gets the final say in the final edit and the way Andy feels about them. I don't know.
I was thinking there's like almost like the musical or the movie, The Producers. There's like this producers element these days where even if we hate something, it still gets popularity. If we hate Tom Sandoval, that still gets the discourse going. It still gets the clicks, all of this thing. And like I've always said, I would rather be loved than hated. So it's hard sometimes.
Me too.
When you are hated, it really does hurt. But I wonder sometimes if they're like, we don't care, babe. You guys are talking about it. It's amazing. And I also want to clarify too, as I go through this conversation, I do want to be gentle or cognizant of Carl's sobriety. I do not know what that's like as a person, so I do not want to speak out of turn. So if I say something offensive, I do apologize, and you can correct me in DMs. I am open to learning about things, but I also want to try to understand, Carl's psychology and where he is coming at this season and what he went through, because he seems like, or presents himself as a broken man in the second part of this reunion. Would you agree or not?
I agree that he does present himself that way, and I don't necessarily think it's a lie even.
Yeah.
I think that this is really who we're seeing. I thought even just the way he spoke about himself, Paige pointed that out, and I imagine if she was pointing that out, that there were more references. He was really beating himself up, and I don't think it's only the internet. I think it's that he has to know in the back of his mind, like, I have let myself down. Like I was, we were all there for Carl 1.0, 2.0, 3.0, not hitting his sales quota. Then he's for Loverboy. Then he's not for Loverboy. It's like they kind of get at this with the job conversation, because Lindsay ultimately is not able to back up her comments about his job when probed. But then you're like, then why did he spend $20,000 on a career coach if it was fine? Like, she didn't make him do that. He felt like he didn't have a direction. And she, I think, for a long time was, helping him, but then it kind of got turned around on her.
Yeah.
I don't know. They've managed to make Lindsay, who is not the most naturally sympathetic person, into a sympathetic person.
Well, I mean, it is interesting. And Lindsay sometimes doesn't do herself any favors in portraying a sympathetic person because, and by the way, I think she was raised and having to be a very strong woman. That's all, you can tell the kind of like military precision that she potentially has. I think her brain works differently than other people, and you have to allow room for that. But it is interesting, and I always hold true to this. When you all come at one target, you're usually going to make that target look better. Just kind of like in the Valley, how Janet allegedly icing Dodie out is going to make Dodie stronger. You're going to make her more of a legend.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it doesn't work. And it just is very apparent misogyny around how the men are held hardly accountable to things, and the women are deeply questioned about everything that they do. And you see this with Kyle and Amanda, how somehow she ends up apologizing for her depression and taking the blame for their relationship being on the rocks because of her own depression.
Well, Sami, as Paige DeSorbo says in part one of the reunion, the bar is set so low for men. And I completely agree with that. I guess, we'll get back to the Carl in a second, but you just brought up Kyle and Amanda, which I thought was so interesting to think of her mental health journey and her being strong enough to share aspects of that with a big audience. But then also trying to then think about throughout the season, Kyle's on camera calling her lazy, which, by the way, Tom Sandoval did the entire season of 11 of Vanderpump Rules to Ariana. It's fascinating how all these women are lazy, but says what a lazy, no good person this is. She can't get out of bed. She's not good with friends. Really went on a rampage in certain episodes about Amanda. Kyle did not have to answer that at all, but Amanda had to take us through her mental health journey. I don't know how that was fair, or even like I was left with so many questions. I like Kyle, but I was left with so many questions about his behavior.
Totally. That were totally unaddressed. How did they get around that? How did they get around Paige's, I watch her cry. Like,
so good. Is that high enough for you? Is that, yeah.
Yeah, good. Exactly. Like, how did they get around exploring that? I understand how, I'm sure Paige doesn't mind that she doesn't have to come at her best friend's husband in order to kind of maintain her own ideals. But I just think how we talked about how Vanderpump sort of tracks the way society perceives women and positions them and what they critique them for. This is a great example of how like a patriarchal dynamic weaponizes and favors men, because not only are they protecting Kyle, but Amanda also, you see how she ends up like weaponized against Lindsay, and they all sort of have to follow, the women have to fall in line for that, except for Gabby, who doesn't. But it's just this very clear impression of how things work just within this little group. And Andy is kind of the lead of that.
That's the other question, Sami, is, Andy always gets not brutalized, because sometimes it's fair, but the critiques about Andy, they get worse and worse each year as the audience gets more and more invested, because we all have questions we want to ask. We also don't know the edit. We don't know what got left on the cutting room floor. We don't know what got left in, but we want to almost believe that this man is a sometimes misogynist against the women that share the stage. And he's excited by the boys in the boys club because they can get around with laying on top of each other in bed, and we can have a laugh about Kyle's mullet, but we don't ever have to delve into Kyle's psychology ever in one season. Is that the fault of Andy Cohen?
I think I don't know who's picking the questions, but I imagine that I think it's
production company. The
Andy
production company does it or helps.
I don't think Andy is the final decider of everything. And I think people really get it wrong when they think that. And I don't even think he's conscious of this, but the person up there asking questions has their own perception of it, and they're live in the moment, and they know, or they're latching on to finding out the information that they want to find out. So we're very curious why Kyle about Kyle calling Amanda a lazy bitch and all this stuff. But why isn't Andy? Because his mind maybe just doesn't go towards that naturally. So he's not going to hammer on that point the way he's going to hammer on Lindsay's job, because his mind is more aligned just naturally. And again, it's like, I don't think he's choosing it, but it's not. Those questions get asked by the audience. Like, people are submitting the questions that we want to know, and they're not getting asked on the show or shown.
I just am so curious though, because I felt like Kyle, God, he really lucked out this season in so many ways. First off, during the season, because we speculated more about Carl and Lindsay than his own relationship, which just seemed to be faltering on so many levels. So that kind of took the heat off Kyle. But Kyle, even in his behavior in the reunion, he was Carl's mouthpiece in a big way and really went hard in the paint. And it's different with Paige going hard in the paint for Ciara, because Ciara, there was something done to her, and it was a whole different scenario entirely. But Kyle was speaking way more than Carl in those situations, coming at Lindsay, when in a sense, what everybody says is true, is that Kyle has so many similarities with Lindsay in so many ways, but I've never seen somebody put themselves out so egregiously in those moments that I almost got offended for Lindsay.
Exactly. It was also wild to watch him be like, how could you ever question Carl's sobriety? Didn't he just a few seasons ago out that he was doing cocaine at work? And he's like, how could you call him Cocaine Carl? It's like, yes! You are what are you talking about? I understand criticizing that move. It was wrong, but to act so incredulous, like, how could somebody ever do that? That's ridiculous.
He's just jealous. He's like, you stole my move. That was my move of calling Carl Cocaine Carl at work. Like, come on.
Right. And then there was another thing that really, really stuck out to me. You have that whole thing with him wanting to be a DJ. And then they reveal that he has been going to New Jersey to take DJ lessons. He lives in Manhattan, and he's going to New Jersey,
where Amanda wants to move, by the way.
But he won't move there for her. And he does this after saying he has no time because he devotes every second of his life to Loverboy, and how dare she consider starting a new brand that would completely help their family financially, which is the part that kills me. And that, is he kidding?
Sami, that was my note. I was like, why don't you take that free time that you're spending learning to DJ and put that towards Amanda's swimwear line or whatever the F she wants to do? Maybe that's the time you hold your partner's hand and say, this time devoted directly to you. DJing will always be there. Trust me, DJing will always be there. That was shocking that we were supposed to applaud Kyle finding the time, carving out the time to learn to be a DJ. And by the way, I'm a guy. Of course, I was like, oh, fuck yeah, DJ, cool. But at the same time, when your partner has revealed such personal information, that time should be spent elsewhere. I'm not a rocket scientist, but that's how I feel.
Right. And then, am I correct that that was in the extended version, the New Jersey DJ thing?
No, I think that was actually in the regular version. That was in the main one.
Was it? Okay.
The Carl on mushrooms. The Carl on mushrooms was in the extended.
Right, because my point is what they choose to put in the main versus the extended also matters in terms of the audience's impression. Because the do you want to talk about the Carl and Mushrooms thing?
I do. I do. Just to explain to the audience, if you do not have Peacock, they have the extended version on that added 10 more minutes to the second part of the reunion. So it was 52 minutes instead of 42. And we had an extended scene where they were talking, and Lindsay revealed that at a music festival, her and Carl did mushrooms together. Carl said, "We literally microdosed. And immediately after we did it, we said, never again." But even Gabby in that moment was like, "Girl, what are you doing?" Like revealing this. But I want to say, if we're going to get to Lindsay in a second, but I do want to say maybe that adds a little bit to why Lindsay was saying cocaine Carl, because maybe she was like, this guy is experimenting with other drugs besides marijuana. Who knows? I've had addicts in my family in the past. Sometimes, even though you love them dearly, they are going to stretch the truth and hide things in a very talented way that you will not, you almost become paranoid about your own belief system. So I don't want to, I know I stand up for Lindsay way too much, but maybe that's why. I don't agree. By the way, what did you think about her revealing that on the reunion in the first place?
I see both. I see
That
both
was tough
sides
for me,
because
Sammy. I was like,
maybe
that's a
that's why they
wild
put
thing.
it. Maybe that's why they put it in the extended thing. But also, I agree that it did give more context for why she felt, why
But
she was
but
more apt to question his sobriety because,
But Sammy, Andy didn't even
yeah,
put that together, which is frustrating. Like we're putting that together,
right.
but Andy wasn't like, "Well, Carl, can you potentially see how Lindsay might think you might be on cocaine since situations like that happened in your private life?"
That's exactly what I mean when I say like it's not necessarily that he's intentionally doing it to help Carl. It's that his mind just doesn't go in that way that sees Lindsay's perspective. And I'm not a Lindsay apologist, but this is the most I've ever felt like Lindsay's right. I understand her. I understand what happened. Not to say Carl is quote unquote wrong in what he did, but I see why she has had this reaction.
Yeah, but isn't it very also in how we view women as a society? We always talk about this is, Lindsay is in a different sort of package where almost even other women will sometimes root against her. Like it's a woman has to be all sorts of things to be able sometimes to be listened to or appreciated. And if they go against that, if they are repugnant in any way, you immediately dismiss them and almost say that they're evil. They're the bad one. They are abrasive in a sense, and you write them off entirely. And that's what I think is that there is so much gray in this situation for both of these people. But I don't think it's as cut as dry. Like, of course, they do not belong together. Yes, great. They're very good, awesome. But I think there was a lot of gray area in trying to understand that there's different people in the world than just happy-go-lucky people. That like Kyle can always just be at the end of the day, I want to party and have fun, and he still has the same outbursts as Lindsay, but they're in a different package where you laugh at them in a sense.
Exactly. And that's why this situation is playing out like patriarchal male female dynamics so exquisitely.
Where does a relationship like Carl and Lindsay, in terms of, if you like, we've all had bad relationships, I would assume. And that's, by the way, that's what's so interesting. At the end of the day, we're commenting and feeling something and we're judging these people that we don't really know in real life, but we're like our own experiences. This is how I would deal with it. But they have cameras, they have all of us speculating. How do you think, or what would you like to see when they go back to filming? Would you like to see them both in the house together? Like, what do you expect out of this next season?
Well, that's what I've been wondering because not only do we have the two of them, but we have Kyle and Amanda and whatever is going on with that. And can you see a world in which they maybe have to do like guys and girls houses and they have like a combo, they go out together or they party together still?
I love guys and girls houses. We've completely, it's like the Civil War of the summer house. Two sides, but men and women, and then they come together on the beach to do volleyball games or something like that.
or throw parties in each other's backyards. Because if you think about it, like I want to see what's happening with both Carl and Lindsay. I don't think either of them deserves to lose their job on the show.
No.
So how are they going to do that? Then are Kyle and Amanda going to realistically, you think they're making it? Well, I guess the summer they're going to film really soon. So I guess
they're filming the first week of July. Allegedly,
okay.
the first
so I
week
guess
of
they're
July.
not going to do guy and girls houses at this point. It's too
No,
late.
and then you have Ciara and
do.
West. Ciara and West will be coming together and living in the same house after all of this.
Right. They need to do guy and girls. They need to like.
I mean, as a producer though, I would make sure they are in that house. And I got to tell you, I think
that's
in some
so
ways
messy.
this seems so difficult, but in some ways it's a gift, I would imagine, if you know the right way to work this and to massage all of their egos and to encourage them, because that's the other thing too is, yeah, please. No, but the other thing is like from a production angle, you really have to think about what goes on behind the scenes. And even Andy in the final the final segment where he tells Lindsay, he's like, listen, Carl didn't call them. I know for a fact. I asked, I did this, I did that. But I want to point out, guys, like production isn't stupid either. This is their job, is to like actually predict what they see could happen. Like they actually, and my thought was that they expected the breakup to happen much earlier in the summer, and it didn't. Like they almost got it there. Not that they created it, but they almost got it. So my thought was, everybody's arguing with me about this point, by the way. And I think it's so stupid to argue because what does it matter either way? But I just don't think they throw money at things. People are like, it's a connector scene to their marriage. Bullshit. 3 days after they stopped filming, they already saw a Carl and Lindsay fight. Why would they pick back up cameras if they didn't think they were going to get something? Carl might not have tipped them off, but they knew it wasn't good. And I think they thought they were going to catch what they caught.
Well, okay. I'm with you, first of all. I don't think it was a connector scene. I completely understand what you're saying. It's not about more importantly, I think people are framing the Carl picked up the cameras and called them because they're thinking about Ariana and they're thinking about how she picked up the cameras and in that heat of the moment. So people were projecting this Carl picked up the cameras in the heat of the moment version of the story when that wasn't how it was going to ever go down. And I think it's been pretty clear that was not how it went down for a long time. But to your point, it's like, they're not free the day filming ends. Like they still are in contact with their producers regularly. So the producers can figure out when they need to film more. They probably realized at the end of the season that they didn't have the scene, but that they were definitely not going to be staying together for much longer. So it just isn't that complicated that they were like, okay, we're probably going to need to do like another day or two, like we had to, just like Scandival did have to do another day, and Beverly Hills was talking about doing that. It's not that hard for them to think, oh, we might have to come back and then prime that.
And by the way, why does that, that's their job. That's their job. But even think about how we are with our actual friends. You'll talk to them and you'll be like, get it off a phone. And you'll be like, oh, it doesn't sound like their relationship's going to last much longer. Like if I had to bet, but think also about putting money in a show behind that as well. Your senses, I would imagine, are more keen on predicting these people's behavior, which you followed for 8 seasons so far. So I think they were like, we're right. Like this is a Band-Aid situation. It's going to rip off at any moment. And I'm not saying they were gleeful about it, but I am saying, like they said last night, they've shared so much on this show. They've They wanted to be there to capture it, and they did. And also to your point about Scandival, is that it is interesting that Carl and Lindsay throughout the season name dropped Scandival throughout the season. Like, not that they were trying to be Scandival in any way, but they were it's like in the shadow of Scandival. They were so cognizant of Scandival.
Yes, but I don't think in a bad way, because if you and I were having a conversation, we'd be talking about Scandival. I don't think it was like,
no, I think it colors it. It colors their experience.
Thing.
It's Bravo.
Right. It colors their experience because it colors all of our experience. We're all talking about it. Those are their friends. Of course they're going to talk about it. So I don't take that as proof of them trying to be manipulative. I just take that as more proof of them being conscious, and us knowing that they're conscious of that is helpful.
Yeah. Well, it is interesting because it's almost like holding a newspaper up of like a date of like this is the time when we are filming this. So I do find that fascinating of it's like a little mini micro fourth wall breaking of like, wow, we're in the same universe as Scandival. It's almost like the Marvel extended
Right.
universe where you're like, oh wow, oh my God. It's like when Craig visits on Summer House, you're like, oh, Southern Charm. Wow. It's so silly,
Yeah,
but it
exactly.
brings you into it even that much more immediate.
It
I
gives
know I'm
it more
hopping.
depth.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
I know I'm hopping around, but that's what I do. I do want to say Betches broke news this week because we did have a Kyle and Amanda. I mean, I've been sick all week. So each morning I wake up and it's been a little different than how I usually wake up with like going directly to Instagram. But I caught wind of, I guess, Face Reality 16 really went hard with information about Kyle Cook allegedly having another dalliance potentially in Leva's Bar Republic in Charleston. And it was like video information of him like touching a girl's arm. But then there was a bunch of other comments. We had Demois blinds last week as well. Leva then went and made a comment also saying that this is just like they were just friends. I can vouch for this. But then a source spoke to Betches saying that Kyle and Amanda are fine. Kyle's at Andrea's wedding. Amanda is not there because they have another Italy wedding or overseas wedding, but they were saying they are fine. How did this come to be that Betches got this exclusive of Kyle and Amanda are fine? Are you allowed to say?
I'm not allowed to say. That's the
Okay.
thing. We
I mean,
can't reveal our
just
sources.
between us. I mean,
You
I'm not
know,
going to tell anybody.
I I can't reveal on the recording, but
I
we
got it.
can
Yeah,
I can give you maybe a little direction into how it works, offline. But
yeah, of course.
unfortunately, this isn't catch and kill. But it's honestly,
The-
this Face Reality 16 is really doubling down, and
really going for it.
always that to me is always like a sign of something's happening because
Yeah,
you know just because Kyle and Amanda, if they were to be separating, and I don't know at all, and I'm not saying it's because I know it
no, no,
or
no.
anything like that, I swear they're not going to tell anyone till they're going to tell anyone.
Yeah. Well, because at the end of the day, it is their relationship, which I'm sure they would like. This is why it is between us and not the Bravo universe at large, right?
Right. And I'm sure they're figuring things out. Like, I'm sure when that clip went up, they had to talk to each other. And he's at a wedding in Italy, probably like very drunk. And it's not, this is really happening to real people.
That's the
So,
other thing. I think we treat them like they're superheroes in a sense and that they're not real. So,
mhm.
like, this is a very real thing. So, every time Kyle would post on his Instagram, I would look at it and be like, he's presenting as he's okay, but I wonder if he is okay and how panicked he is right now of every new drop. And is Andrea aware of this? Are they trying to keep it from him because he wants to have a happy wedding? Like what? But it's so funny because you almost get so tunnel visioned with Bravo that you're like, some of these people don't give a rip at all. They're not even aware. But I wonder what Kyle is going through and also what Amanda is going through because she was just open on a reality show about her mental health struggles.
My first thought when I saw that video is, what is Paige texting Amanda right now? That
Or
was
my
literally
first
my
thought was
first
like,
thought.
Is Lindsay behind this? Is Lindsay DMing
Was
Face
it
Reality
really?
16? Well, no, in a
Was
joking
it
sense. I
really?
was
Oh
no,
yeah.
that was a
I
joking sense just because that got brought up at
Yeah.
the reunion in terms of leaks and things like that.
What do you think about all of that? The leak
I think
accusations.
I would have loved another 10 minutes about Danielle leaking that Craig Conover got kicked out of Kyle and Amanda's wedding. I would have
Didn't
loved 10
Sam
minutes
Bush
more.
write that article?
She sure did, and that was for
Yeah. The
the
dip.
old. It was the dip back in the day, which Kate Ward used to be a part of, and I remember that entirely. I remember that so
Same.
specifically,
Me too.
and I was like on the edge of my seat. But it was so interesting that it turned out to be Danielle, but they all thought it was Lindsay. Lindsay, of course, comes from a PR background. I don't know. I think Demois and the rise of Demois is very interesting because you really can put out anything. And it is interesting to hear Demois talk about it on her podcast in regards to Kyle Cook this week, because she does bring up something, and she was asked to kill a story or kill a blind about Kyle through like a friend of a friend, or she said like somebody she did business with a long time ago. It's interesting in that sense. But even she said in the podcast of like, I'm done with this. Like where there's I'm like, I'm tired of getting blinds about Kyle hooking up at a bar with somebody. I'm tired of it. Like, Kyle, correct your shit. Like, come correct. And I think my thing is, and my foolish thought is, I still want to believe in Kyle, where you would think he would have learned from the first time potentially that he would have corrected his behavior. If that's the troubling aspect of this for me.
I mean, they're still arguing over whether he should come home at 4 a.m. And it doesn't matter if he comes home at 4 a.m. 4 times a year if it's making her this upset. And now he's DJing in New Jersey, her state of residence of choice. And he's basically just, it's so disrespectful. It's so disrespectful that he even has, that he's continuing behavior that leaves this question there in a way that embarrasses her and destabilizes her trust so completely.
Well, it's like the DJ thing. You can't even, like, you're out there pursuing a DJ career. Like, those are like, it just seems like one thing after another, where I sometimes worry about the foundation of that relationship through a reality show lens. I do want to say through a reality show lens, because I don't know what their real life relationship looks like. But it is interesting that now thousands upon thousands of us get to comment and be judge, jury, and executioner on something. That is a thing. And then sometimes it gets to a point where I feel gross doing it or speculating, because Amanda, even if I sometimes disagree with certain things she says, I think she is genuinely seems like a good person, and I want happiness for her.
Totally. And one thing that I thought was interesting was Jesse Solomon saying everyone comments to him about Amanda and Kyle, but actually they're so great together. And like, I see that. Even though there's so much toxicity there, the toxicity is because they are so, there is something between them that like
of course
keeps them together. So I see what, and it's hard to listen to her talk about him and be like, unfortunately, I love this man. And the things I love about him are the things that drive me crazy about him. Like, all of that is just so destabilizing and uncomfortable. And she just wants to settle down and have a family and her dogs in a nice house. And that, I imagine, is hard for her. And I feel like he probably is like waiting for Loverboy to sell so that that can happen and he can feel like, I'm done. And he doesn't feel like he can get there yet because his job is alcohol.
Well, I would joke this season, Sami, about, or I'd be like, this season sometimes plays as clips that you will eventually see at their divorce proceedings, where Amanda gets half of the company, you know, where you're like, you will see, like, you will see all of these scenes eventually. I'm like, oh, well, that's going to look good for Amanda when that comes up in court. Like, it just played totally so differently. Yeah.
Thought exactly the same.
Their relationship seems so real to me, and that's why I am kind of on the edge of my seat. And it really then makes you kind of that meta thing of like the voyeur aspect of this, which I keep bringing up, the judge, jury, executioner thing of like, listen, a lot of our lives, not yours, Sami, but a lot of the other people are messes. Yet we are like, that's how you deal with it. That's how you handle it, when we've like all made idiotic mistakes out there, but we know this is like, but it is right. Like, you see it and you're like, oh, that's wrong. That behavior is wrong. And that's why it was so frustrating to bring it back to the reunion, that none of that was talked about in regards to Kyle. You could have had a fascinating conversation that could have been positive at the same time surrounding Kyle. And then imagine Paige throwing in on that conversation, or Jesse as a newcomer throwing in. It would have been a fantastic conversation.
Totally. And instead, Angie seriously wastes a question on why Amanda wants to live in New Jersey and not Brooklyn.
I know.
Are you kidding me? Or did you seriously waste a question on that?
It really boggles the mind, because there's so much meat on the bone this season that it was like one missed opportunity after the next. To talk about West and Ciara a little bit, talking about the fandom, it's very interesting. And I wouldn't say it a fall from grace, because if anything, I think he's kind of back to normal or getting there in terms of fandom already. But we have something that I think a lot of us predicted, even though we thought it was so cute and romantic, that he was not able to see this relationship through. My frustration, Sami, and I don't know what yours was, but the thing where I felt it crossed the line was she was very open about saying, I don't want to sleep with you. I date intentionally. So for me, even the stringing along, it's like, okay, that sucks, but whatever. But it almost felt like he was doing it to like sleep with her. Then he slept with her. And then he's like, sorry, I can't go there. That was the part that hurt to watch for me.
Oh, totally. I mean, that's the whole problem. It's that she made the boundary so clear and then he took advantage of it to such an extreme. He could not have disrespected her more thoroughly in the way he treated her. And that is what was hard to watch and what not just made me think like, it actually made me feel like, are you okay? Are you really a sociopath maybe? No, I don't want to go that far.
No, I
don't
know
go that far, but just why did she told you.
Yeah. I mean, she couldn't have been clearer about it, which everybody's always saying that people need to communicate clearly. I don't know how you do it better than what Ciara did. And he was aware of that information and still continued. And even we find out a conversation that happened off camera where she gave him an out after that horse riding trip. He decided not to take that. And then on top of it, went to the parents, went to a wedding, did all of this stuff. And then in December, and then to use the Bravo fandom of it all is so flimsy in so many ways and was such a confusing statement to me, because I really truly liked West like everybody else did. And I think there's so many elements, but West to me is a TikTok guy. He knows how to use social media. There's a certain type of New York guy that dresses like a certain way. He does enjoy all of this and he should enjoy all of this, but also trying to infer that Ciara was he might have been like Ciara's puppet. Like Ciara, are you out of your mind? But also, are you out of your mind? Ciara ever being a puppet master? Come on.
She's not like that, right? I mean, it really showed his true colors. I think people fell in love with him a little quick. To your point, I know exactly the type of guy you're talking about. Like, sorry. To your point, I know the exact type of guy you're talking about. And my feeling on him is that sorry, I lost my train of thought. It was about
the West and the way he dresses and the way he acts.
Okay. Not only is it ridiculous to suggest that she would have been his puppet master or anything like that. Again, he would be lucky to have that privilege, but he was so warned. Even his parents told him, "You're gonna look like an asshole," and he did. He couldn't have looked like a bigger asshole.
But it is interesting that we will, it was interesting to read the discourse the first weekend and then to see it petered out in a sense. And then a lot of people, it's interesting to see people's emotional reactions to things, but also the backtracking of, it's a good guy. Come on, made a little mistake. In fact, I do think this was a gift in some ways for him, because we actually then get to see if he's learned a damn thing from this. Because literally this could, like, if he went on a certain way, we could see a future scandal down the line. Hopefully, is he smart enough to learn from this behavior? Because he really does have the world by the balls. Like him and Jesse Solomon, like I was joking today, I was like, what would Jesse Solomon do? Well, let's pray he wears a condom this summer, because this guy is going to get thrown women right and left. Like they really do. And I think he truly, and this isn't a fault, I guess, but he does want to sleep around. He does.
Yeah, he does. Again, just you please use protection. And the thing is, it's okay to say that. It's one thing to not say it and dick around this girl who's being very clear with you about what she wants. It's not like she's playing games, being like, yeah, I want to be casual, and then getting mad when he wants that too. She was very, very explicit with him, and he disregarded it. And I am concerned that there will be a rekindling based on the way they, I don't know. I just,
another question that upset me with Andy. When Andy asked that, would you consider why are we even asking that?
Why are you handing him the ball to slam dunk it? Like, this is exactly, Andy is seeing it from the male perspective, from that's really what it is. And that he's wondering, is there a chance? Because that's probably what West is wondering. I was like, oh my God, I really feel the door was left open a bit too wide, and you saw his face, and he was like, "Oh," like I saw his face perk up.
Yeah. Well, it's almost like, well, I got a backup plan if I need it. But hopefully the reaction was so severe for him that he realizes, and also seeing how Carl and Lindsay and the reaction to that, I do think he is very cognizant, and not potentially in a bad way, but he is very aware, like they pointed out, of how good the show is. Oh, wow, we're in a great season, even though Paige pointed out two people are like living their personal hell right now. He is excited about this. You can tell like his TikToks are funny because he's that quirky dude that knows he's got it a little bit. Like he is a good looking dude, but not like not a model, but good looking enough. But the quirk adds like this whole other allure to him, and he knows it. He knows it. Like everything he orders to eat, like, check this out. I'm so quirky. And I even buy into that as well. I'm like, damn, I wish I could be that quirky. Like, wow.
It's because he's not beautifully good looking that he's able to appear non-threatening, and then he can sort of embrace his personality and confidently, and he's obviously been able to do that for enough years that he's honed that skill, and it's working.
Yeah, and I think like, I thought going into the season, I misread him like for an episode or two where I thought he was kind of a nervous guy that didn't do well with women. And then I realized, oh, he does very well with women. Like, oh, he almost probably does better than Jesse Solomon.
Ryan, that's the game. That's how he does it.
Yeah, exactly.
That people,
yeah, I bought into a whole different, I thought it was a different guy.
So do all the girls, I bet.
Yeah. I mean, that's what I mean. Like the Jesse Solomon also standing up for his boy Wes, but really not having anything. Like, I mean, what a waste of a stand up when he doesn't really have anything to say. Like, they're both good people, and like my boy was just. I'm like, Jesse. Also,
no,
I don't know how you are with your friends. Do you go around asking like new friends if they've boned your other friend? Like, I would never do that in a million years. I just wanted to make sure she wasn't screwing over my boy. Jesse, do you really think Ciara was out there trying to screw over your boy? Are you kidding me?
Okay, that's just ridiculous. He knew because he watched the show that was not what was happening. So you weren't doing that. That just all makes me more skeptical of Jesse Solomon that he's defending this behavior. If anything, he should call his friends like in a little bit, be like, come on, man, it's not cool. Like he is defending him and it's not working. It's not looking good. And his whole thing is, I'm looking for the right girl. I don't think what Ciara said about, I wouldn't let you among any of my friends. I thought that was a little over the top. I don't think he's doing anything that terrible, but the way he's now defending West's behavior makes him look way worse to me.
Well, my friend Sophie, who I do the show with sometimes, she was off Jesse for a while, but now she's back to loving Jesse. And I'm like, Sophie, we are like 3 bad decisions from Jesse being like a West like 2.0 on this show. So like the fact is, maybe we shouldn't celebrate any of these men for like 2 seasons until they're on 2 seasons, and then we can start to celebrate them. Maybe or celebrate the women.
Maybe they have to do way better things in order for us to celebrate them. Like,
you're saying prove themselves?
Not just, being not terrible immediately is not, or even for a long time, is not like that celebratory. One thing with Jesse, shit, I lost my train of thought again. It was about, one thing about the Jesse asking West, asking Ciara, why don't you sleep with my boy? I think that's like very immature behavior. That's very college guy behavior. That's something 23-year-olds say.
Yeah.
Not 29-year-old. I mean, maybe do 29-year-olds.
Well, it's like how Tom Sandoval made so many sex jokes throughout the course of this season. I'm like, are you like at a frat right now? Like you're making sex joke after sex joke. That's how Jesse Solomon and West, I feel like behind closed doors, and Kyle, they probably just like, smell my fingers, dude. Yeah.
And Sandoval made a very egregious sex joke at the reunion, and Andy thought it was really funny.
I didn't get that laugh. I'm like, dude, that's homophobic in a sense, dude. Why are you so? Because he like, oh yeah, I swallowed a condom and took it to my ass. Ha ha ha. Like dumb.
Yeah, yeah. I didn't. That's what exactly. Like he wouldn't laugh along with women joking about men in that way.
Yeah.
I don't think.
Do you? I mean, if you had your druthers, would you ask this entire cast back for another season?
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, of course.
Definitely.
Yeah,
Would you ask the
exactly.
entire cast back?
100%. I was a little worried about Gabby just because I didn't feel she presented, she had the balloon guy Joe storyline a little bit with Danielle. But I think, you have to have Danielle you have to have Lindsay defenders, and she is that along with Danielle. So I'm trying to I think you don't make any changes to this cast at all. I think
I
it would be a
agree.
mistake.
Even if Gabby isn't, the center of everything, I still like her. I still find
Yeah.
her to be an additive character. And you do sort of need more people so that you're not just having the obvious main players always doing the same patterns. If you think about Gabby and the Danielle thing, we wouldn't have had I'm a founder CEO if not for Gabby. So
Which I feel
that's
like we
iconic.
didn't even finish that conversation between Danielle and Paige. I feel like there were so many
No,
things
that was
left open.
not.
Or what about Danielle talking about Paige's relationship with Craig? That wasn't talked about at all as well. Remember when Danielle was like, "You give him nothing," and Paige was so offended? Why didn't we talk about that?
Yeah, I'm interested in that, especially because they're going to continue to be on more shows. I would
Yeah.
even say next season they should just add Craig.
I personally, I would love it. I would love it because I want to know how that relationship works on more than just are you going to move here or move there level. I truly think they will wind up together. And I've really enjoyed them this season more than I ever have, but I want to see how it works more. I want to see, because Paige seems like I turned that guy's life around. I want to see it. And Craig acts like a tough guy. Like, if she leaves me, I could deal with it. No, you couldn't, Craig. You would be in a pile.
No, he could not. That is just he's putting that on to try to get her to be too afraid to leave, to get her to be
I'm
more
cool.
into him. I
Yeah.
think with them, I agree. Like, we need to see what's up with them when they're together for a long period of time in one city and committed to each other and not preparing for an engagement he wants to an engagement, but
Oh
not
yeah.
preparing for a wedding.
Dude, he's had
Because
the
that
ring since
then
day one.
Yeah, but then it's like you always then you're like in the wedding stuff. And it's like, I don't want to skip straight to the wedding. I want them to not do what Lindsay and Carl did, which is like try out the relationship in the phase that most closely estimates commitment, which is like living together long term, but not engaged.
Yeah, I agree completely. Two other areas, that I would love to speak about is being a founder of Betches and doing what you do. Kyle is a founder, obviously, of Loverboy, and I do think there is a danger in showing your personal life on camera when you have so much money and a product that you really believe in. I think it's a double-edged sword because you want to get that product out there. It's free advertisement. We see Loverboy nonstop on this show, obviously, but I don't know how it works. Does consumer confidence get destroyed when we see sometimes Kyle's behavior the way it is? Doesn't that hurt a company as well? Would you ever agree to be on a reality show, Sami?
No. And, no, because honestly, you don't get to control what is shown of you. And
Well, Kyle kind of does at the reunion. I'm joking.
he does, but honestly, I don't think that Loverboy's issue is the way he behaves on Summer House, although it might not be flattering in many investors' minds. I think that the problem with Loverboy is that people don't like how it tastes and it's too expensive, so they don't rebuy it. So people are buying it because they hear about it and they want to get it because of like the show. But I think the problem is that they don't rebuy it because what I've heard is that people don't like the taste. If they were to reformulate the taste, I think it could be a very popular drink. And I don't think Kyle's behavior would have anything to do with whether people will buy it, to be honest. But that doesn't mean that in a different circumstance that Kyle's behavior wouldn't be a problem. Like, I think in most situations, the owner of an alcohol business conducting himself the way Kyle does would probably be a flag for like regulators. It's if it weren't part of the show, I don't think it would, we did a drink. it, acting like that would not have been cool for, where we licensed Betches' name to faux pas.
Oh my God.
It would not have been acceptable for us, contractually, to do that.
Yeah. That's what I was just wondering, if that like plays into it, or if, like when he's screaming about Amanda being lazy and like, you don't work any for this company. I sometimes wonder if like consumer confidence gets rocked when we're barely surviving. Like when those temper tantrums are happening, how that affects the consumer.
Well, the way he treats Amanda is different than how he talks about how they're losing. I don't remember what he said they're losing, but when he talks about that is more harmful to the company. Also, because it's like proprietary information. Why are you talking about this? Like that, you're not supposed to be talking about. The way he treats Amanda is a different thing, where consumers might boycott it because they don't like the way the owner acts. But I don't know. If you like to drink, would you stop buying it because you knew they were losing money?
No, unfortunately, no. Listen, I think it's more funny to think about the spritz wars between him and Craig Conover, and if that would actually be a storyline of like, we could actually have two grown men fighting about spritz, like that would be truly hysterical and a gift from the gods. I just don't know how much sometimes like that does rock a certain product. I don't know what to believe in that sense. And I always wonder if that plays into anything. And we have Carl now in the non-alc side of things at Loverboy presenting another
What is non-alc Loverboy? Is it
I'm guessing it's just no alcohol in it, and it's just like flavored water. Then he does like a bunch of different.
How much does that cost?
I've not checked it. I've not looked into it, but I hope all the best for Carl and success with the company. But it is scary to think about Loverboy potentially going under, because I'm like, God, I feel like they're like 3 years away from being able to do some kind of Bethany Frankel deal where she's able to sell it off to some conglomerate.
What I hope for Loverboy is that somebody buys the brand and reformulates the taste and makes it really good. Because I think that it could really, I genuinely believe that people would buy that drink because it has enough name recognition. He does seem to have it in enough stores, which is also a big thing with liquor, getting it into every market in every state. He took a big risk by manufacturing your own alcohol, formulating the taste. It is so hard to get licenses in every state and to make, it's like a racket. So getting relationships with distributors in every state so you can get into retailers, because you can't directly sell. I guess maybe you can online, but it's complicated. Yeah. And I agree. I think that the business is a good business. I think the problem is what I see people say about the taste. I've never really seen anything else about it other than that complaint.
Well, I do want to say they're my favorite can. I think it's like a beautiful, like their cans I like
Agreed.
the best. I love the logo.
Well, thanks,
I love
Amanda.
all the different colors. I know. Thank you, Amanda.
I completely, to that point, that's what I mean. It's a great brand. The merch thing is working.
Yes.
It has name recognition. It has
Sammy, I bought merch more than the drink. I bought more merch than I bought the actual drink.
Exactly. I really think someone should buy the brand and make the taste different. And I think Sammy,
Sammy, are you throwing me a signal? Do you want us to buy the brand? I want to go back to Carl and Lindsay.
Take that out. I think because I could get in trouble. Maybe, I don't know.
Take the whole section out, or
because here's the thing. No, not the whole section. But my question, okay, because faux pas. I know a certain licensed beverage that was a good formula that they could maybe reuse.
I wonder what that could be.
Find the right supplier. I don't know.
Well, who knows? That's who knows? The world works in mysterious ways. I wanted to finally once again talk about Lindsay and Carl, because a lot of this season was on their shoulders in a way, and we knew going into it what we were going to see at the end of this, but it's very interesting to see how they talk about it in the reunion. And I really don't know at the end of the day. Obviously, there are no winners or losers. And it is interesting to see how people have perceived all of this. And I don't think there's really any team at this point, because they both won and they both lost. What, in terms of the reunion itself, did you take away from Carl and Lindsay?
I think that it sort of felt like this was a fight over, okay, it's like once they were no longer going to be married, what is there to fight about anymore? It's sort of just who was right and who was wrong and who really cares. That
Well,
was
they're
kind of
fighting
what I
over,
took away
no, it's
from it.
public. They're fighting over public perception.
Correct. Yes, exactly. So you're watching them fight over public perception, and it's almost like if you would stop fighting over public perception, you'd both be way better off in the public perception.
Well, that's why reality shows melt people's brains. Like you have to start thinking not about yourselves as real people anymore, but as entities that make money. You are a brand at that point, and that's how they're both viewing themselves, I feel.
What did you think of Andy asking Carl
Andy.
if he cut the ripcord because the cameras were there? And do you think that is what happened?
I mean, listen, we'll never know the honest truth, but I will say at the end of the day, every fiber of my being believes that Carl did not go into that conversation wanting to get married to Lindsay anymore. There is no part of me that thought if Lindsay was like, okay, babe, I'll do whatever it takes, I think he would have been wildly disappointed if that was her reaction. I think he wouldn't have been prepared. I also think it's okay to need backup in tough conversations because we've seen throughout the seasons stuff like I said, just how Lindsay is very different. Carl's emotional makeup is very different. We have to allow room for other people to exist and that he doesn't have the strength in those conversations. It seems like it turns him into a different, worse version of himself. So I believe he did need backup. Do I think he will ever admit that? Not in a million years. By the way, and I don't think he was doing it out of malice and being an evil person. I just truly think he was completely lost. And if you watch the other seasons, I also think that's why he potentially drank and did drugs because he didn't know how to handle life. He didn't know how to handle situations. And he felt that made him the best version of himself, which is so sad. But that's what a lot of people feel. Do you agree with any of that?
All of it. I think that we're watching not a Lindsay and Carl issue even. We're watching a Carl issue that Lindsay is the other end of.
Yeah,
exactly. Lindsay became Carl's next thing because I've actually been rewatching Summer House from the beginning.
I was going to bring that up because you were talking about a clip last week.
Yeah, I sent you a clip. We should cut it in here because it was just a wild clip with Danielle and Lindsay and Hannah talking to Carl about the kind of girls he likes. We'll cut it in here.
Yeah, I'm making a note right here. Got it.
And so watching back these seasons, Carl is different than I remember him being. He's just seeing it from this perspective. He doesn't seem so innocent. Or not even so innocent. It just seems like this is just another continuation of everything we've ever seen rather than the new Carl. It's just, Carl Sober 0.0.
Yeah, I mean, it is interesting because he has a very woe is me second part of the reunion of, listen, have you seen the internet? Like, I'm not like, and he was like, I'm ashamed to say that I haven't hooked up or kissed anybody since Lindsay. Why are you ashamed to say that, dude? Like, good on you then.
Right.
Like, I don't give a rip at this point. I don't think that makes you good or bad, depending on who you hooked up with. But the fact that you potentially think you are ashamed about that, or we might view that as weird, I'm like, good on you. Do whatever you want to do at this point. Your life is yours. But I do feel like he is so in his head, which potentially led to some of these problems in the first place, that's the part that worries me about Carl, is that I do feel this situation with Lindsay hurt him way more in the end and potentially set him back, which is why I think a lot of people wait a couple of years before they have a serious relationship in their sober journeys. And you can really see where the danger is. And I love what you said a second ago of, this is another one of Carl's almost ideas. Like, this is him having Lindsay is a version of having a non-alcoholic bar. Like, what if I did this?
Yeah.
What if this is what I should be doing? And it didn't work. And I do wonder sometimes if that rocked Carl's confidence because it was another thing that he was wrong about.
100%. I think that this was just another round. And again, he's not so disappointed in the fact that the marriage didn't work out. I think he's disappointed in himself and how he's lost. And that's why all these issues about the job, if you really feel like you're not making that much less than Lindsay and it's fine, then why are you so upset about your job? Why is it a thing for months and months? Then you should be fine with it. I agree with you completely that Lindsay will bounce back. Lindsay already has bounced back. This is just a blip in her life.
And Lindsay will bounce back even better just to spite us. Lindsay will will be better than ever.
Exactly. But not even out of spite. That's just who she is. It just
Yeah.
is. He is not that person. He is someone who I don't, he mental health struggles, has a tough family that he comes from. So does she, but it's in different ways. And I feel badly for him because it feels like this will hurt him more, whereas it will help her bounce back. And I could really tell that this is a concern because Paige seems to be handling him with kid gloves and she doesn't handle anyone with kid gloves.
Yeah.
And that just made me feel like she must know he's struggling. And that is, I have compassion for that. And
that's such a
yeah.
great, and that also I think applies to Amanda as well, because a lot of people are like, well, Amanda, stop with your like little comments about Lindsay and or Paige as well. But I think what, to your point, is that they know Lindsay is going to be able to land on her feet. They know that. I think the rest of those people that really have been around Carl for so many years know that he is fragile. And by the way, you don't have to be completely evil in this situation, but he might, and speaking as a pussy myself, I am soft. I am fragile. Like, you can hurt me and break me very easily. And I know that's not attractive to some people because I see the discourse around Carl. I get that, but that could be it. He second guesses everything he does in life. He used alcohol and drugs as a crutch, and it probably made him feel invincible at times. And he is learning to be an entirely new person, the person that he was born. And that takes a lot of time. But I love that thought. You're right. Like, they do know that he's fragile.
Yeah. And Lindsay, I think when they went into their relationship and part of why they rushed into it, and Danielle had said, this is too fast, and she ended up being right, but they had this argument that was plausible, was that they had known each other for so long. They've been best friends, blah, blah, blah. And Lindsay, I believe, was very attracted to Carl. She was attracted to drunk, asshole, confident Carl. And watching those old seasons, like, he had it. Like, he had that, like, spark.
Swagger.
And she definitely was really into it. And now he doesn't have that as much. He's calmed down in certain ways, and maybe he doesn't come across as confident in those moments.
But isn't that interesting? She liked Austin messy like that too. When Austin was like just shit-hand wasted at the summer house, or like on there, it's like she really got something out of that.
Right. So she convinced herself that she was getting the Carl she was attracted to, when in fact she was getting new Carl. And when she was sober, maybe that worked, but long term, that's not her.
I see a lot of Lindsay's perspective throughout this entire season, even though I don't agree with sharing the mushroom story at all and the cocaine Carl. I do understand where it might have come from, but I do think when your camera's on, like, there's a whole other conversation to be had. But I do wonder if you take Carl out of this, and this is another judge, jury, executioner moment, is that I sometimes wonder, will Lindsay ever be able to, or is she looking at the patterns of behavior in her own life and certain relationships that she gets into throughout the course of her life? Because what I'm starting to learn from life after all of these years is that your problems never leave. They just find different forms to like try to teach you that lesson that you've never learned. And I do sometimes wonder if Lindsay is open, because sometimes I think being strong, people think that means that they just don't listen to anybody else. And I do wonder if Lindsay is actively going, okay, how do I handle these situations in life because they keep coming up in this form?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm not sure. I don't know that she's not. I just know that it wasn't asked, which would have been interesting. I would have asked that. That's one thing. And then also, I'm going to tend towards no, because she jumped into a relationship really quickly, and he's the greatest guy ever. And where have we heard that before? So I'm going to guess no, but doesn't mean that she's not in therapy and maybe trying to work out different patterns, or that this guy is better fit for her. So I don't want to rule it out, but they didn't give any indication that that is the case either.
Do you think she's pregnant?
I have no idea. I don't want to speculate. I don't know. I have no clue.
Oh, okay. Well, no, I mean, listen, I asked her when we were at the Betches office. She said, I asked her in a roundabout way, in a very, like, these Reddit rumors crazy. And she brought, and she said no. And I also, Yeah, I don't want to speculate, but it is interesting because then you like hyper look at all the outfits she's wearing at the wedding. And then in Rolling Stone, she did an interview today where it talked about the rumor about her not being on Traitors because that she essentially might have been pregnant. And she said, that rumor is crazy, but I can't talk about the Traitors, which I was like, wow, she didn't shut down the Traitors thing entirely, which was so surprising to me.
Right. That rumor's crazy is something people say when they're,
that rumor's crazy. And then
to-
she said, I can't speak anything regarding the Traitors. So I was like, wow. Because I would thought she's like, no, I was never going to be on the Traitors. Like I thought that would have been the quote, but she said, I can't say anything about the Traitor. I can't speak about the Traitors. And I was like, what does that even mean?
Right. Why can't you speak about it if you're not going to be on it? Like we can say right now, Ryan, I'm not going to be on the Traitors. I was never going to be on the Traitors.
Sammy, I can't speak about anything regarding the Traitors at this point in time. I'm so sorry to say that to you, Sammy.
Are you going to be on the Traitors?
Sammy, her new book comes out next month. It is called God, I wish. Oh my God, it would so
wow. I know Traitors is a lead.
But I think with VPR, what we realize is the news cycle isn't the only thing 24/7 anymore. The Bravo news cycle is the same. And as we near a new season, it is interesting to speculate. Oh my God, is Lindsay pregnant? If she's pregnant, is she allowed to go in the summer house? Is that legal? Are you allowed to be pregnant and go into the summer house? And is that going to affect the baby? Because Carl's going to stress her out. Like you start writing this weird fan fiction in your head, just like we do potentially with Kyle and whatever situation's going on with him and Amanda. And that's sometimes where I get frustrated in terms of that news cycle. And I realize I play a part in this as well.
We are the news cycle.
Well, that's the thing. I play a part. I benefit from all of this, but sometimes you want these stories to be told on screen. You want that magic to stay out there. And that's why I think we had some of this conversation where we're like, oh, we wish Andy had done better at this, because we're having these conversations.
Well, that's why it's frustrating. They're supposed to be the microphone for the viewer. That's the point of the reunions. It's not for them. It's for the viewers. No.
But in this day and age, well, exactly. But in this day and age, are there too many microphones? We also had the Summer House after show for the first time this season on Peacock, which I thought was so damn good. Did we, on top of this podcast and every other one, which by the way, I want to shout out Dylan's mention it all on Betches as well. Did we exhaust some of the conversation where the reunion will never be able to be good because the conversations we've all had have far superseded what we're ever going to see?
No, because we're having the conversations and then the reunion's being filmed. So the reunion should be the place where you sort of catch the fan curiosities and you give the cast a chance to answer them, because we're not contributing the questions for the after show. That's essentially just like a fill in the color in what's going on for the main show. But the reunion's supposed to be the fandom asking. Otherwise, they wouldn't submit questions from Sarah and Indiana. Like, it's supposed to be about our reactions. And if they're totally not representing a huge piece of fan curiosity, that is a loss. And that's why I felt like last night's wasn't really as good as part one.
Yeah, I mean, it was I always say, calling it stick the landing. Do these shows stick the landing? And unfortunately, Summer House, having the best season it's had in so long, didn't stick the landing. There was so much left to be desired, but I don't want to take that away from like such an amazing season of drama, fun, all of these things that I saw. Even West and Jesse, great additions, so much greatness out of this season. It is just that I was hoping that it would be a perfect season.
Yeah, part two didn't stick the landing, but overall the whole season did. And, it's rare that a season does everything right. And if they did, what would be fun to talk about?
Oh, you're right. I mean, listen, the show films in July. We won't see it again for like another 7 to 8 months, but there is so much happening. And I know we're going to continue to talk about it up until the premiere of season 9. And there is a lot happening right now, but I do want to remind people, Betches is where you can find out breaking news, as we had breaking news this week with Kyle and Amanda. So I'm sure you might get more breaking news. So make sure you are subscribed everywhere, Betches. And I also want to say that Democracy in Retrograde is Sammy's book that comes out July 9th. Now, remember, she said at the very beginning, if you show proof of purchase by July 11th, you will be entered in a sweepstakes where you can earn cold hard cash from Expedia. Plus, what else do you win?
Well, I'll technically tell you it is not a sweepstakes, it's a giveaway. So everyone everyone is getting a digital gift from me and Emily on July 12th. And one person will be chosen to win a $3,000 gift card to Expedia. And the way you enter is by emailing your screenshot of your receipt to democracyinretrograde@gmail.com. And I'm really, really excited for everyone to get the book. There's lots of Bravo references in there, don't worry.
And by the way, I know people bought this book or pre-ordered this book last time you were on, like a month and a half ago or something. So can they actually get their receipts from the Okay, cool. I just wanted to make sure that would be okay.
All receipts count. It doesn't have to be since I've announced it. So any pre-order counts up until July 12th. So,
are you nervous? Are you nervous for the reception of the book?
I am less nervous now because there have been a few reviews and they're good from like real reviewers that are hard and harsh and, not afraid to be judgmental. So most people who have read it, so far the reception from people who have read it has been really great. And then it's really, really helpful. I'm most nervous about the election. So that's that's really what gets me nervous.
It is funny. Like I'm getting even more intense into my Bravo fandom as the election gets closer. It's like this
you need to
distortion reality field where you're like, I'll watch Summer House again, which is insane. Yep. The storylines over on Vanderpump Rules and Summer House, but it's not nearly as insane as the real world. And that's scary.
As the insane story. There's kind of the similar characters, similar narcissists, always assholes everywhere.
God bless America. Sami Sage, you've done it once again. I could talk to you for hours. Thank you for doing this. And I know your time is precious, so I really do appreciate it. Is there anything else that you would like to leave us with about Summer House?
Oh, no. Let's just stick the landing on this one.
We did it. Take that, Andy. Take that.
Take that.